is I kind of wanted to start by showing some, some fully built out examples of what you can actually do with it, and given the audience, what better place to start than in the Sustainable Development Goals realm. And it just so happens that a few years ago, our competition was all about Sustainable Development Goals, and we even had a student track so that folks sort of with your level of experience and sort of in your sort of academic environment, were able to submit their stories and get recognized for the work that they were doing. And I thought it'd be great to sort of start by showing what some of the winners of that student track of that competition accomplished. And so this was the grand prize winner. It's called Hidden Realities, and it was an investigation into femicides in Turkey. And what this story did was just pull off a really effective, almost kind of, I hesitate to use the word simple, but there weren't a lot of sort of like flashing lights and bells and whistles. It was just a really effective mix of media and text to sort of, make the impact that they wanted to make. Starting with that sort of that silhouette animation in the cover. They pulled in some really nice infographics here. And it's actually kind of interesting. Since this competition happened, there's now a way to actually sort of recreate these infographics in the story maps builder using the timeline block. So we're always getting ideas from what our users are doing. So yeah, just really, really effective, powerful story, and that was recognized for being sort of the best in class. Another great story, the second prize winner was iBanker Kendall Regency, which was about sort of the ways geospatial technology is used to analyze the challenges in a rice producing region of Indonesia, the island of Java. And what I'll do here is I'll jump right down to the methods section, which I can do because the authors enabled this navigation bar, which kind of acts as a in-story table of contents that follows you. Because what this I think was one of the most powerful parts of this story. They used one of those immersive blocks Ross talked about called Sidecar, and they employed a technique called map choreography. And what that is this sequence of sort of scrolling slides with maps sort of occupying the main part of the window here. And as the reader scrolls, something about the map changes a little bit. So it's relating a different sort of type of information, or just pointing something out. And it's a really great way to present all the information you need without sort of having to present it all at once, without having to overwhelm a reader with too much to learn at one time. So just a really great, they're showing all the different sorts of data that they were analyzing here. And another really good thing this story did was they used what's called the embed block to bring in an outside web app that they also created with ArcGIS software. But the ArcGIS Story Maps Builder can't do everything, and just by its nature. But what we have done is we've incorporated this ability to pull in content from elsewhere on the web, so that if the builder can't do it, you can always bring it in from somewhere else, and it looks just like it belongs here. So it's another really great feature of ArcGIS Story Maps that this winning story used. And finally, the bronze prize winner was this beautiful story, What You Can't See in the Tennessee River. And this story got really high marks, really stood out for its what we would call its visual language. So it's just the way that every single element of the story kind of fits a stylistic approach. And so that as you scroll through it, everything looks just, really gorgeous. They've used this sort of white and light blue color palette in their infographics that they've brought in, these little sort of flourishes here that they've used. So just really effective job of that. And what they've done is they've backed that up by using what's called a theme in ArcGIS Story Maps, which is sort of where you can control all the color schemes and the fonts and every sort of all these other aesthetic elements of the story. And I'll get to that a little bit during the demo. So yeah, I just wanted to give you a taste of sort of what people are actually doing with this tool to tell their stories, especially about SDGs. And as you've seen, we've gotten some remarkable work, and we're excited to see what you all create as well. So now that you've seen that, let's actually go under the hood a little bit and sort of actually take a look at how you might start putting some of these stories together. And so when you log into storymaps.arcgis.com, you're taken to this landing page, which is your content library, and it's where everything that you've created is housed. So that's stories, collections, and themes. I'll get to these latter two in a little bit. Um, but now let's just start by jumping right into the builder using this new story button. That brings us to a completely blank canvas. And so I'll start by giving it a title, bring in a subtitle, and then you can add an image or a video to the cover. Like you saw in the Hidden Realities one, did a really powerful video. Here we'll just use still image. And I kind of don't love the way this is kind of cropped out. I can adjust it a little bit, but still kind of feels like it's not landing for me. So I'll just, there's a few cover styles, and I kind of like the way the text and image, work off each other here. So that's what I'll do. And then so getting down into the actual body of the story, like Ross mentioned, you pretty much everything you add is through this block palette. This little plus button is your best friend as you're working on these stories. And here's that screenshot Ross showed. Here's all the things you can add to the story. And so I'll walk through a few of these, but first let's just, let's start with the simplest thing. Let's add some text. And you'll see that the text editor here, you can do a lot of different kind of formatting things: bold, italicize, strike through, subscript and superscript. You can make it a hyperlink. You can change its color. You can align it if you want. And there's also a bunch of different text types. So, this is just regular normal paragraph text, but, if we have 3 different heading styles and you can also create lists and sort of standout quote block. But here we'll just make this a heading because it's sort of introducing the story. And now I'll bring in sort of some more, just a paragraph. And of course, another big thing you want to do with ArcGIS story maps is bring in media. So here we'll just start with, here's all your media blocks, and we'll start with just a simple image. So yeah, add that and bring it in. And it'll, it starts with this, sort of occupying a lot of the screen. You can make it even bigger if you want to really have it stand out. But what one thing that, I kind of don't want this to dominate this section, so I'll have it just kind of float alongside the text, and and then I can add a caption to it to, just provide some context. And so, yeah, very simple kind of point and click way of adding things to the story. So now let's go back into the block palette. And as you can see, there's other media options here, very straightforward. Most of these audio and video, sort of speak for themselves. Image gallery is sort of a collage of a lot of different, multiple images. There's the embed block I mentioned. You'd click on that and you'd paste in a link and it'll bring it into the story. Swipe block's a fun way to compare, have either 2 images or 2 maps side by side, and there's a slider that compares them. And then timeline block. But what I really wanted to spend some time here on is the immersive blocks Ross talked about, because those really are sort of the bread and butter of ArcGIS story maps, and they're what really helps it stand out as a storytelling tool. And so I'll start by adding a sidecar, which was the one that Ross used in his story. And so you got a few different layout options, but I'll start with the docked one here. And so what happens is a sidecar is based on slides. And so you start with one blank slide. And then I'll add some, blank slide with a big media section here, and then sort of a place to add some additional context. So I'll add some text there. Then I'll use my media section. This time I will add a video of a flooded football field. And what's really nice about this sidecar is that you can add more than just text to these narrative sections. You have a lot of the same kind of abilities that you have in the regular block palette. So what might be good here is having just a little tiny map that sort of lets people know where that football field is. And one of the features in ArcGIS Story Maps that lets you do that is what's called an express map, which is kind of this blank slate, very simple cartography. You don't need any GIS skill. You don't need any sort of, advanced education in this. It's just a map where you can add points and polygons and lines and annotations and just really create a simple, slick map in just a few clicks. So let's pinpoint sort of where that, it's somewhere in that rough area. And then zoom out a little bit so that people get, a sense, broader geographic sense of where that is. And so now, just as they're scrolling through here, all at once, you get this video, powerful video, get the text explaining what's happening, and then just beneath it, the map, just telling you exactly, where that's happening. And then, so you want to add more slides, very easy to do that. This is your slide panel here. It's where you sort of organize all your Sidecar's content. And this time I want to add, a map that's a little more involved, something that somebody has actually created with GIS stuff. And so I'll again go to add a map. This is a map that I know I've added to my favorites at some point. You can also see, maps that people in your organization have created. Data from the Living Atlas. This is a huge resource that I definitely highly recommend, digging into a little bit if you get the chance. But here's the map I'm looking for. And so what's going to happen here is you bring it in, you see all the layers that have been sort of already included in the map by whoever created it. And I want it to sort of look at the effects of sea level change in 2040. And so I'll add, I'll add sort of the supporting, what that is. I'll make it a subheading just to kind of give it some oomph. And now I actually want to show you what, so that sequence you saw, the map choreography, it's actually really easy to do that because you can duplicate slides. So you don't have to start from scratch. You don't have to try to match exactly, where the two maps are, what their extent is. So I'll just duplicate this slide and I'll go back into the editor for it and say, instead of 20, I'll just turn that 2040 layer off, turn the 2080 layer on, and just change this. And just like that, you get this, scrolling experience where it's changing as the reader reads through it. They don't have to do anything at all. And they're getting a really, really strong message without being sort of overwhelmed by information or having to do a lot of the lifting themselves. So just a really, really neat technique that if you're using geospatial data, definitely worth considering as you're putting your stories together. And one more thing about Sidecar that's great is, so now I feel like I've got all this sort of wasted space here. I actually want to use a different layout. The floating one sort of gives a little less room for the narrative portion, and I can just go back and forth without losing anything I've already added. So just like that, very simple way of doing that. So those are some basics of the story builder. There's another block called Map Tour that I'm, if we have time later, I'd like to come back and show, but I do want to show a couple other sort of bigger picture things, starting with sort of how the story looks and feels. And a lot of that is done through the design panel. So, here's, you can turn that navigation bar on that you saw in the other story. A really handy thing to include so people can easily follow where they are within the story. And then here's where that theme that I was talking about was. And now when you first start, there are 6 sort of out of the box themes that we've prepared for you. And they sort of follow different, sort of different broad, sort of aesthetics. There's like a foresty one. This does have sort of a watery one, but I don't quite love it for this particular story. And then we've also got another gallery sort of some additional professionally designed themes for different moods or topics. Again, not really a good sort of watery one there. So what I'll do is I'll go into the themes that I've already created. And you see, here's the one I prepared sort of just for this story. And you just apply that. And that's, this is exactly what the Tennessee River story did. They had a theme and they just applied it to their story, and it changed sort of all these elements. And just to kind of see what what that actually looks like to create one of those themes, I'll go back to my projects, and you'll notice, by the way, it's constantly auto saving, so you never have to worry about like, oh no, I left the builder and didn't didn't save and I've lost all my work. This is constantly saving everything that you're doing, every single like keystroke that you enter, everything you add. So I can just, leave this entirely and not have to worry about it. And this time I'll go to my themes part of my sort of content library, and I'll start a new theme just so you can see sort of what the theme builder looks like. And here you, like I said, you have almost complete control over sort of every visual element of the story. And you can change your background color, and the whole time you've got warnings about whether sort of the text in the background are accessible enough, if their contrast ratio is appropriate. So that's really, really handy. And it's nice to just have this color picker to drag around, so you don't have to do trial and error, trying to figure out what the right hex code is or anything like that. It's very, very intuitive. You've got some of these, accent colors that you can play with. Huge library of fonts. We have a connection to the Google Fonts library, which is like 1,000 different fonts. So it's a little bit of a rabbit hole sometimes, actually, but definitely nice to have that flexibility. And then, sort of all these other elements here. You can change the way the quote block looks. You can specify a different default base map. You can add a custom separator, sort of something to bridge between sections. So yeah, just a lot of different neat things you can do. Add a logo. So yeah, just theme builder is just a wonderful tool. Definitely recommend, because I said that visual language is a huge part of what makes a story effective and stand out. So definitely don't sleep on that. And finally, one more thing I do want to sort of walk through here is this thing called a collection. And what that is, it's a way to sort of bundle a lot of different stuff. Generally we use it most often for stories, but you can actually bring a lot of different things into a collection. So I'll start again here just by creating a new collection, and then again give it a title. And you can also add, some extended, description, summary of what the collection is. But for now, I'll just go straight into adding stuff to it. And as you can see, you get sort of ArcGIS content's the main kind of thing that you want to do, but you can also just directly upload images, videos. You can embed outside content again, PDF files. So a lot of flexibility, a lot of versatility here in what you can add. But right now we'll just stick to stories. And again, I've added these stories to my favorites, so it's easy to find them. So it was it's the Kendall Regency story. It was one of them. Oops. You can add multiple things at once. There's a hidden realities. And then the Tennessee River, if I could spell it right. So there, I've added these items to the collection. Now here they are, and once they're in there, it's super easy to rearrange the order they're in. And so this is called the collection overview page. And what happens is when you click on one of these, you go into the actual item itself, but you've got this header that kind of follows you, and it you can cycle through the items really, really easily. And just a few more things you can do with a collection to really make it spruce it up. You've got a few layout options. The one I like for this, because these are just 3 stories, I want to give them equal weight. Get this journal layout, which allows just to gives each one its own line in the collection overview. And then also some navigation options. This one I like a lot for sort of shorter collections. You can see the full title of each item as you're sort of going through the collection. Then you can always get back to the overview page. And then of course you can add a theme to a collection if you so desire. And that just affects the overview page. It doesn't change the theme of this actual item in the collection. So now you feel like you've got a product that you're ready to send out into the world. One thing I highly, highly recommend, you definitely want to preview, which we have a preview mode here. And this is great because as Ross mentioned, these are designed to work on all different kinds of screen sizes, all different sort of forms of mobile technology, as well as desktop computers. And you can actually get a sense of what it looks like on each of these different kinds of technologies, these screen sizes. So here's what it would look like on a tablet, roughly. You can get a sense of what it would look like on a smartphone. This is great because if you see something's not quite lining up, you can go back into the builder and tweak it so that it definitely will work. It'll look right on all these screen sizes. So if you think it looks good, you're ready to publish, and so you just click publish, and you got a few final sort of options that you might want to mess with here. This is how the item, the story or collection will look when it's shared on social media. If you don't like this, a collection will generate sort of a thumbnail collage, but you can replace that with just one of these images or any other image that you want, and you can change the title of it or the summary if you had given one already in the collection. And then when you go to publish, this determines who's able to see it. So it starts with sort of only being yourself, and this is good for things that aren't ready to go out in the world yet. You can also have an organization option, which is great for collaborative work, like say somebody you're working with, you want them to be able to give some feedback to your story. You can, if they're sharing an ArcGIS online organization with you, you can set it to this mode and they'll be able to see it, but people, the general public won't. But then you can also